we arrive now at the summer of discontent. Long past is the winter of the same name. May 2023. So you've had a lovely holiday in Porto, Argo, and now we're in May 2023. So where are we at in the story now?
So, as I mentioned, while Argo was in Porto, I was home alone, and there wasn't really work on the project being done because most of the team was away, and my passport had been stolen, and so I had way too much time to kill and to think. And this was the time where I mentioned I had been sent a big letter to HR about I think it's a really tough time to think back to, but I think the gist of I still have these letters, but the gist of the letter was that this company has been really kind of making me sick, making me unwell. Especially I described once more all of this stuff that had happened since I was hired, like from summer 2022 being sidelined, kicked off the team by my previous lead, being made to be this bad guy in the company, being placed under handler, not being allowed to do my job, not being allowed to lead, being subject to different rules than everyone else, being subject to this berating and humiliation, and just not being able to do my job, and being obstructed from doing my job, at the same time being disciplined constantly for not doing it. I had I'd asked also, why is it that for me and Argo it's so much, we're being treated so much differently than anyone else in the company, other directors who lead other projects, other writers. Why are we the ones who are sidelined from all the teams? Why are we the ones who are treated with this guilty until proven innocent, and all kinds of things? Like it was a serious letter to which any serious HR department should respond with making me aware of the processes by which I should be able to formally submit a complaint and have it dealt with. So grievance procedures, my rights, but of course that they don't do these kinds of things. Instead, I think they were all in Porto, so they all showed to management exactly what all my problems were. And the solution, I was told, which is, as you might notice, is a thing that happens often in ZAUM, which is your boss is gonna come hang out with you in like a very informal setting. So we've had before already Dennis coming to our house. This time they told me Ed was gonna go to a walk in the park with me, a Regent Park in London. So this was where I spent several hours with Ed, and at that time I had much more respect for Ed than I did for other members of management, because like I said, he's a competent person who does know the games industry, unlike the other two, Ilmar and Dennis, who really don't, which I think we forgot to mention it before, but when Ilmar was asked what his favorite game is at one of these brainstorming events, he said, I'm still finding myself in the medium. I told Ed at that time wasn't familiar with everything that had happened in 2022, because I told him, Argo and I, we got kicked off the project. It seemed to have been Kaure and or Dennis who kind of encouraged this, and who encouraged Justin to remove us. And now there's this kind of unresolved baggage there, and we've been made the kind of, I feel like they never forgave us for criticizing management and for criticizing leadership inside this company and all of that. And I remember Ed had listened to all of that, and he had agreed that this was a horrible way to deal with the issue, that they had really messed up, that we never should have been put through that this was a really disruptive way to do things in the company. I mean, this is the same stuff we heard from Dennis before, but it doesn't seem like that ever left this conversation. They were just willing to tell us, like, I'm sorry, guys, you never should have gone through that, but then never did anything to correct it. Because I also told them, look, going forward, we've already asked management several times, can we have like a mediated makeup session between the different teams so that we resolve all of this awkward baggage because we want to be friends with Justin again. We wanted, we want to be able to collaborate again because he talked also about working on new games in the future. And we said, yeah. And he said, yeah, but now is not a good time for that. It will be done some other time, which which never came. And he had agreed. He said, these kinds of animosities, when you have this kind of rift inside a studio where one team is very sort of jealous of the other team, and Argo and I are constantly being accused of being the reason why the other project isn't doing well, and that we are poaching or all kinds of things that are not happening. He said these kinds of rifts, they destroy studios. He says, I've seen it happen. I was like, yes, I absolutely agree. And we've been wanting to fix this for a while, but we said we need actual management to mediate because there needs to be an apology from the other side as well.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that would not happen in the end. There was also quite some sort of, we'd been talking for several hours. So he also talked about P1 and how it was canceled because the project was really not doing well, which was the opposite of what Dennis was saying around that time. Dennis had been fighting with us, saying that this was the best project the studio had ever done, and you guys don't know anything what you're talking about. Even Ed didn't agree with that. My impression was that Ed, with his knowledge of the industry, had canceled P1 because he saw that it was not realistic, it was not structured well, it did not have reasonable deliverables that the studio could deliver. I mean, to expect that after making Disco Elysium, you're going to make a GTA-sized game, that's just not going to happen. But I think Dennis was overseeing the project, and I think he got personally struck by the fact that it was, qualified as incompetent and canceled. He would not have been the one to cancel it. So I had the impression that his pride was injured, and because of Ed's decision, and he was certainly taking it out on us.
Mm.
Ed also talked. This was, I think, just after the PMG doc had aired, so he had a lot of thoughts about the Red Info, about how the PMG doc has caused them to drop some lawsuits, or at least their lawsuits weren't going well. He seemed to be quite satisfied with that, and there were some schemes I think he was suggesting where it would be really good to split up Robert and Rostov, like to get Rostov back. Or I'm not sure that these conversations with management, they would very often devolve in this kind of gossip, plotting, scheming. He was gossiping about Coward as well. There was quite some, and yes, I also participated because at that time, again, being part of this in-group who has this knowledge and talks about these things, it can feel addictive or feel special. But I never divulged any information or wanted to divulge anything that would actually harm Red Info, and we never, Argo and I, we always resisted any attempt of this phishing that would actually result in them going after them, because we just think that's unethical.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason of what I'm leading up to also is saying that I had seen over that summer how, I'm not sure if that was in any way part of Ed's original job description, because he's a president of the company, and I don't know how the corporate world works, but by that time he had become like a specialized shark with the intent of going after ZAUM's external enemies. It very much seemed like, because he has these industry connections, he was weaponizing them to survey competition and to go after competition. So he was able to talk in some detail about the NetEase deal that Red Info had. And also something that happened that summer was that somewhere on the internet there was talk about Red Info gossip that maybe they're working with Tim Kaine. And I mentioned Tim Kaine kind of grudgingly because he's a very, very nice person. I don't want him to get drawn into that. He's a creator of Fallout. I think he's very nice. He never did anything wrong and doesn't deserve to be part of the story. But I mentioned him because I guess the connection was he had worked on Outer Worlds, where Ed, that was published by Ed or some sort. They met on Outer Worlds. So when Ed learned that Tim Kaine might be working with them, okay, he's going to call up Tim Kaine personally, he's going to make sure that he doesn't work with Robert. He's going to show him, tell him to watch the documentary. He's going to tell him these people are toxic, and he's going to try to, do his best to discourage this relationship from going forward. And again, I have evidence of this happening, and this was one of those moments where, again, like the previous time when they had asked us for information to go after Red Info, here again I felt, why are you preventing these people from just doing their new thing in their new place? Why are you trying to weaponize your industry connections to go after their game?
It's like going after an ex who cheated on you or something, isn't it? And like you can't let it go, and you just keep trying to involve yourself in their new life and their new relationship, and just this inexplicable chasing of a past love.
It's kind of like going after the ex of your new girlfriend who cheated on them, because like that was the funny thing, that Ed, having never met Robert or Rostov in person, felt comfortable enough to say that these are two of the most toxic individuals that he has ever heard of in the gaming industry. It's just like, dude, have you seen what's happening in the gaming industry?
Ironically, it's the most Harry Dubois thing that these people have ever managed to do, not being able to let go of the apricot-scented Robert Kurvitz.
For sure. Robert is living rent-free up
they are haunting this place. And what's amazing to me is that people who otherwise would seem to me like respectable career professionals are so roped into this childish gossip circle that they don't even understand that to which degree also Dennis is lying to all of them and shaping their opinions of these people. I know, because he did the same about us. And so you have, like Argo says, the absurdity of a person who doesn't know these people being so invested in making sure that the whole industry would know that, have a very bad opinion of them. And I've seen him do this with other studios as well. Maybe Argo, you want to say something first?
I want to say that like, my impression of Ed in the beginning was really positive. Like for first time, I think, like ever, we had somebody who clearly understood the games in the industry. Like his morality was never in question. Obviously, he was a capitalist shark, but he was at least like moderately charismatic. He seemed to be interested in people. Later, I realized that it's this thing they teach you at Harvard Business School, where every time you meet somebody, you memorize one thing about them, and then whenever you meet them again, you talk to them about this one thing. If you're eating a bologna sandwich when we meet, then every time after that, when I run into him, I'm like, hey, how's that bologna sandwich going?
Yeah.
For me and him, it was BMW. So every time Ed and I ran into each other, he always asked me, how about those BMWs?
That's so funny.
But the thing is that morality aside, clearly he was a competent guy. And like when Dora said that obviously Dennis was lying to him as well. This became more and more evident, because kind of like in the end of the day, a computer is only as good as its sensors. Like if the sensors are completely feeding you completely false information, then the decisions you make based on this information can't be good decisions either.
Yep.
And Dennis, as the executive producer, head of this nervous system of the company, like controls information absolutely. And it didn't even take very long, maybe a couple of months, 4 months, where Ed went from this, like this guy really has a head on him, and even when it's necessary to contradict Dennis, like he does it, went into this gossiping little angry boy mode, where I think yesterday we also discussed that it seemed that amongst themselves, this inner group all they were talking about is Rostov and Robert, and kind of he kind of it seemed that he got addicted of that, and obviously the drinking, every time he traveled to London, I think they went out drinking every evening, like. All of this, I think for him as well, life kind of started going in this direction.
I heard that so Dennis can't go visit him in the US because he's not permitted to travel to the US because of being a convicted financial criminal. most convincing guys in his own country. So he can't go to the US. So Ed has to come from the US to UK to visit him. And then they do this kind of, this is so, like, if you think about the upper management of ZAUM, just think Succession, right? And what they do is they have these jogging sessions, I think 5 a.m, where Ed and Dennis, they like jog around Regent Park. And while they're jogging, they go over all these strategies, enemies, who is doing what they're going to do with this legal case, that legal case. It's not healthy. It's I think it's adrenaline inducing. I think it seems interesting and addictive, but yeah. And there's also this strange sort of, I want to say burner phone circle, but it is at the very least a secret business phone circle that they've built around themselves with this coterie of inner circle producers and leads Argo also was.
Well, two things. I will come back to the burner phone thing in 1 second. But I wanted to say that if you think that it's kind of inappropriate that this guy came into our house to talk to us in Brighton, then let it also be known that some of the people in the inner circle, when they visit London, they stay at Dennis's place. Like Chris Priestman, I've heard multiple times. Like when he comes to London, he stays at Dennis's place. Ed, at least on one occasion, definitely stayed at Dennis's place. Why get a hotel when you can stay with Dennis? Like this is kind of this level of bonding to yourself. That is happening there. Burner phones. I don't know how normal it is in general in gaming industry in this C-suite and the next tier management for people to have burner phones. This was the first time I ever thought that maybe it's a thing that happens. But in ZAUM, all of those people in that circle, they have burner phones. And how do I even know about it? Because when these burner phones or this round of burner phones were purchased, Phil Davidson, I think, was the one who made the purchase, made a mistake and ordered them in the wrong office, ordered them in the Brighton office. And then for a while, there was this confusion. Where are the phones? They were looking for them. So the entire company became aware that there's this weird burner phone shit happening.
I can tell you where I've seen organized burner phone strategy before. In the wire, when they're dealing drugs and they don't want to have a wiretap or any mafia operation. That's where I'm familiar with burner phones. So
I mean, that's the thing with high control groups and why this stuff kind of like organized crime is very similar wherever you go. It's definitely, and it's a way to avoid or try to dodge disclosure obligations for court. If you ever have to go to court, then the person has to know what to ask for. Like, I have to know that you have a phone on which you talk about me in these group chats. And if I don't have evidence of that, then the court can't order you to disclose it. So it is just very, there's definitely, again, and it reinforces this idea of being a special boy in a special boy circle. Like, oh my God, Daddy Dennis gave me my secret phone on which he's gonna we're gonna have the lads group where we're gonna gossip about everyone else, and oh my God, can you believe what Argo and Dora did this week?
By the way, I will just say, boys and men are the worst gossipers. Like everybody says it's the ladies. I can tell you now, no one likes to gossip more than a heckle of men stood around a smoking shelter. We're awful, aren't we? To be honest.
Yeah,
it's why football is so popular, right? That is exactly because that is soap opera for the guys. Wrestling is the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, if you think that what locker room talk is that it's about relationship and opposite sex and this kind of stuff, no, it's all gossip.
Yeah, it's gossip.
Really talk about this stuff. Only gossip.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd seen what I also wanted to kind of wrap this tangent about Ed about was that even later in 2024, so that's quite recently, I have found out that, for example, according to Rias Mola, a character from season 2 of this story that we haven't yet reached, another corrupt entrepreneur, he said that, according to him, so how trustworthy is he? I don't know. But Ed had offered him to reimburse his legal costs if he were to sue Kaur-Kender and his new games company. He also said that Ed was extremely focused on Kaur's new company and focused on Red Info. So, he said that this is business in a sense that Rias told us that he feeds information about ZAUM's competitors to ZAUM, especially to, Ed and Ilmar and Dennis, so that they can, pursue their competitors. And in return, that they would hopefully be fine with him using the Disco Elysium spiritual successor branding with his new company, Longdo. So this is how these circles work. And in the same way, Ed and the ZAUM management, they were very interested in going after us through this guy Rias. So these business partnerships are quite based on this ruthless undercutting, where it's as if we're talking about some kind of high-level banking complex instead of fucking indie games. So yeah, these are guys who they are not minding how their own shit show of game development is going. They are instead offering. So I'm not clear that were they offering their personal funds, because I don't know, would they offer their personal funds, or maybe they were offering ZAUM's company funds in order to, for a guy to sue some other guy. So people who are working at the company, do you even know that your company is spending their money doing this kind of stuff, threatening creatives who used to work there before, paying off guys who are going to sue their competition? Like, this is it's quite outstanding. I don't know if this is the norm in the games industry. Maybe I was just very kind of naive about the way business is done, but I think either way it needs to be talked about.
What a colossal waste of human energy, life, time. If I go back to space and nihilism and the futility of it all, like the chances of a human life existing, right? The calculation and the probability is, you can't even understand how unlikely it is, because not only do the universe had to form for a start in the way that it did, which is I don't think people realize how much of a miracle it is that Earth is exactly how it is, and then your specific DNA has to make it to Mummy's DNA, and then you have it's. Why are you wasting it?
You have to outswim to be here this day.
Yeah, and then you're using that incredible gift of life to fucking exhaust yourself, picking fights and just doing nothing worthwhile. Really, I can't fathom it. That's what sticks out to me about it all.
Well, honestly, if we think about it a little bit and go back to this, what I refer to guilt, but this feeling, feeling of insecurity, then kind of all of these actions in a way boil down to fear, because kind of if you feel confident enough in world, then you don't feel that you need to preemptively attack others. And in this, I think it applies to individuals, organizations, smaller and larger structures. And in this situation, creating this atmosphere of martial law is an extremely useful tool in that narcissist toolbox, because the moment this danger is gone, so many things suddenly become unjustifiable. But while there is this enemy somewhere, you can make a case why we all need burner phones, why we need to go and burn their village down before they come burning down ours. Adversarial us against them mentality is what this all is really built on. Without it, it becomes very quickly clear that you don't know how to lead, you don't know how to make games. Why are you even here? Talking about tennis here in this case.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, actually, because it is it's giving people, in a weird kind of way, a select group of people their reason for turning up in the morning, right? They don't want to miss out on that little bit of information they might get, the gossip, and being part of that little circle.
That's why I say that it seems to, at ZAUM, all of this, as you say, waste of potential and of human time seem to come from these groups of people who don't actually have real constructive work to do on the game. The writers were too busy trying to write, the artists were too busy painting, the musicians were too busy making music or voiceover. But when you're in management and when you are when you're already so psychologically damaged from this war you've been leading, then what do you have to do except more war? If you're sitting around not doing the war, you feel like you're missing out, you're losing. And they have too much time on their hands. They're not necessary to the functioning of the company. They're not actually contributing in any meaningful way. So what do? They're just justifying, as you said, justifying their existence by coming up with this stuff. And if I hadn't seen Succession, I wouldn't understand how people can fill their time with this, and what a delusion it creates in your mind, this money and power of being part of this some kind of warrior caste almost. And I think to me the best way it was described was Argo wrote this little humorous story. I remember when it all ended, when the layoffs happened, where he called them professional fuckers. And I felt that, yeah, you can build a career off of fuckery. You fuck one company into the ground, and then you go fuck the next one into the ground, and then your whole life is spent just fucking.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're still in May. What else is going on in May?
Let's do a little summer here. Okay, let's say that we're in May. We've been doing X7 since in autumn 2022. Up until Christmas, things were going really well, but clearly we saw that we need writing assistants. We started asking for writing assistants at the end of 2022. Kept asking it over the spring. Did not receive any. Was it in March or February? The BMG doc was recorded. It took a while. It was only released in June, when we were immediately after we got back from the company event. But two things I wanted to talk about this previous period. First of all, the team on X7, like, amazing. Like, there's not a single bad word to say about the team. Starting from the very beginning, like when it was just three of us, Dora and me and Leo, like beautiful, great, amazing work was done. Then I don't know if should I say the names? Dora, do you think? Okay, I'm not going to say the names, but with every person who joined in this phase, like things got better and better. Fantastic concept art started coming out. Even on the software or programming side. Some former knights who Knights of Unity were working with us, like amazing people, like nothing but praise to any of them. And we in the beginning of 2023, I think around that time, we started having these bi-weekly team meetings where topics could be discussed. It had been downsized from this entire company all hands, where, like earlier I said, there was this one time where people voted on topics that they wanted to discuss, and for some reason the post that said Rostov malfunctioned and people couldn't vote on it. Basically this, but it had split into smaller teams. And in those meetings, other people in the team now already had also started expressing confusion over this strange structure, because everybody knew that Dora and I were directing the project. But now on these meetings that some happened in Slack groups that were disbanded with us in it and then rebuilt without us in it. When these groups started having meetings, then confusion rose from the fact that Priestman was referred to as the product owner and creative director, and there was a variety of these terms. And I remember there was I think on one of those I asked our producer about it, not Phil Davidson, asked him about it, and kind of later heard that he was scolded saying the wrong using the wrong title describing Prisman. Why am I saying this? Is that basically what was happening there? This is my read of the situation. That was that Tõnis had thought that he can insert Prisman into this leadership position, and it very smoothly it just transitions over to him. That kind of without rocking the boat too much, like Prisman just becomes the creative director of the project. But the problem was that because nobody else was told this, the artists, the programmers, no one was told this. All it did was create a lot of confusion. And at the same time, Tõnis's initiative, producers were trying to limit the writing team, basically me and Dora's contact with other teams, like sort of cut down on these meetings about characters. For example, no longer it was possible that when a concept artist wants to talk about a character that you can just sit down or have a Zoom call with the writers, but instead now there's this very rigid structure. We have a kickoff meeting, and then months later we have a review meeting. All this in between, this human connection part, like talking about it part, was increasingly eliminated. We finally got to the point where it was completely absurd. I think even the review process was optimized to the point where by the time us got to review it, it already had a full-on character model basically, and it produced wacky results in some cases. So during one of these X7 all hands meetings, multiple people voted for a post that said it's this leadership structure. It is very confusing. We don't understand what is happening there. And I think this was one of the reasons that then a couple of weeks or a month later pushed Tõnis to initiate this what we call structure talks, the restructuring the writing team hierarchy. And also something I maybe should have said earlier, it wasn't super relevant then, but it becomes a little bit relevant later, was that remember when I described this confrontation I had with Tõnis and Phil Davidson.
Yep.
Where Phil Davidson threatened that if you don't accept these terms, then the project will be cancelled. And I said I'd rather have it cancelled than make a third. Like immediately the next day when we had this all hand meeting, I put it up on a post-it that project cancellation should not be used as a bargaining chip, expecting that maybe there's some. That maybe there's some repercussions for Phil Davidson, or maybe like there's going to be at least like a wider discussion on it. Wider discussion didn't happen, and there was no immediate repercussions to this. Only months later did I learn that Phil Davidson actually holds a major grudge over the fact that I publicized this information to the entire team.
Yeah, so the kind of what started happening more and more from that point, and especially throughout 2023, it was ramping up, was this backroom abuse. We were really, we were getting, producers, and Dennis and Phil coming to us in private to really like kick us. They would say really inappropriate stuff. They would say things that they're not sanctioned to say, like, for example, project's going to be canceled unless you agree that. I think it was to absorb the writing team, and also I think that we wouldn't have a say in how they would work, but that production would give them tasks or something like that. Like these very things that imposed rules and changes that actually damage the working flow. And every time we would object, every time we would say, look, as writers, we are telling you things are not done this way, they're done this other way. The attitude would be, but what do you guys know? You guys, what makes you an authority? You guys don't know anything. You don't, we're not even sure if you know how to write. That was certainly something they were saying to me a lot, but that was the attitude. You want to say
For the sake of brevity, right now we're not gonna start going into every single sort of conflict between like for example me and Phil Davidson, because it's pointless, and individually they're not that significant, but essentially. Because of this methodology, this agile production methodology that Phil was championing, we started having these problems where I am explaining to Phil that, see, this is how we did it. Like that's how we did on this one. That's why we did this particular way. And this wall that I kept hitting was this is how it's done in the games industry. And this like to this day, whenever I hear this, oh, this is just how it's done games industry, my blood boils, but because it's such a dumb argument that because everyone is doing something in a certain way, we should do it the same way as well. It is kind of like looking at games from such a far out zoom that you don't understand that every game is not made the same way. Like NHL 2025 hockey simulator is not done the same way as the Railroad Tycoon. It's kind of like hiring a boxing coach for your chess match. Like different games, different methodology. But this wall of no, this is how it's done in the industry. This is how it's done in the industry. This became such an issue that honestly, like there was even a phase in the beginning of 2022-3 when I think I stopped going to Phil Davidson and I went to Ed. I went directly to Ed when I had a problem, because I saw that this is just like an information black hole, that whatever concern I take to him, it just doesn't get any either doesn't go anywhere. I don't get any response, or I just hear that no, this is fairly common. Everybody does it in the industry.
Yeah, I very much felt that by the middle of 2023, it was the instructions given throughout production was, these two are problem people. Whatever they say, lock it down, shut it down, don't propagate it, don't even try to make any changes, just kind of shut it down in its root. So whenever we would have a problem or a suggestion, we would go to our producer, and the producer would immediately kill it on the spot. It was like, by default, these people are like not to be trusted, not to be listened to. And I want to touch on what Argo said about this kind of standard industry practices. Like, this is ultimately the ruin and the stupidity of ZAUM. It's the fact that they largely invented and perfected their own way of working, which resulted in the best rated Metacritic game of all time. They did something and produced something in a way that no other studio could do, because in every other studio, this level of literary ambition would not be achievable, because other studios don't give this amount of bandwidth to their writers. It was a writer-led studio because Robert had the creative, and Kaur, obviously, and Rostov as well, but the creatives had enough of a sway, being shareholders, to fight for the ability to achieve a level of space and time to reach a level of narrative quality and finesse that other studios don't let you do. And of course, when Dennis fired all of them, Robert and Rostov and Kaur, when he removed everyone and he had power, he doesn't understand what made his own studio so successful. They don't understand that this particular method that was developed, that it was the best way to do things. Instead, the idea was, okay, we're going to throw out everything that we did and how we did it, and we're going to import a bunch of what we think are very successful Western developers who do things in a very kind of this conventional way that is very monotone, dry, corporate, and most importantly, we're going to get a bunch of people who produce 7 out of 10 games, and we're going to have them run our studio now. Like, why would the methods that produced mediocre Western slop be an appropriate way to replace the method that produced the best Metacritic rated game of all time? I mean, the only way that makes sense is if you are a person who committed a corporate hostile takeover, who now just doesn't fucking care about the quality of what they're making. They don't care about creatives being respected, about creatives being happy. It's literally just about keeping power and also feeding their own ego, where this is something that happens a lot in Eastern Europe. You think that your own people, your own kind are so much worse than Westerners, and surely everything's going to be better if you just get a bunch of British and Americans and whatever to fix up your thing. So that's what I felt was the case.
You know who'd like you two a lot? I was just listening to the pair of you talk about the methods and everything. I bet Larian Studios love you two. And if they ever hear this, you sound very much like, is it Sven Vick? Yeah. He talks in very similar terms to what you guys are saying. I just couldn't help but notice that. It's funny, isn't it? Disco Elysium was only, and well, it wasn't really, but it was the first title that PC Gamer finally allowed to have the #1 spot as the best PC game of all time. After Disco Elysium had it for 5 years, and it fascinates me that no one is going, yeah, actually, maybe they're onto something there. These crazy ZAUM and Larian Studios folks.
I in one of the interviews with PC Gamer, I talked unpublished interviews. It was a while ago. I answered the questions in writing, and I spent like a fucking A4 talking about Baldur's Gate 3, and even post our termination. Like our situation was so intense that when the ZAUM debacle ended, then even though I received invitations from Larian to have a discussion, I just didn't have the bandwidth to deal with this. But honestly, like even now, I think we could right this moment start talking about Baldur's Gate 3, and we could have another 6 hours of discussion. So I hope that one day, even if it's just for the sake of what do you call it, discussion, we can talk to Sven about this stuff. But throughout the what was it, 340 hours, I think, that I put into Baldur's Gate across multiple playthroughs, I kept thinking like, yeah, if their mastery of level design and this technical robust just works stuff meets our approach to narrative, like this could be the kind of leap that you'd see maybe once in a generation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that there's a way to explore this one day.
Yeah. No, I'd love to see that, and I was just going to add to it, like, there's, to your point, Dora, and I think you referenced it when we had a chat separately before Argo, that like the thing about Disco Elysium is, I think most people see about 60% of the dialogue was the kind of, and this is the thing that is absolutely key. Like, no Western corporate approach would allow a bunch of writers to write 40% of dialogue that most players will never see. But that's the kind of thing that Larian obviously do understand, because I started my second playthrough this year after I mainlined it, basically the first playthrough, and I was like seeing all these stories online. I was like, I don't fucking see any of this. And then I played it the second time, and I ended up in this huge cave underground in the first area, and I was like, okay, it's just a cave. Like, I don't know, in Skyrim, when you go in the Dwemer cave, it's just one cave and it's kind of over. But I was in there for hours and hours. I was like, fuck, I didn't even know it existed. It's amazing.
For me, like, one of the greatest realizations was when on my second playthrough, I decided to try out the Dark Urge. And when I realized that, oh my God, Dark Urge is the canonical playthrough. No one even advertised it, or I don't know, it completely passed me by. Although I did play it already in early access a little bit, but I never realized it, and how well this kind of what you expect from coming from Baldur's Gate 2, how well it was realized. It really blew me away. Like, highly recommend. Like, if you do another playthrough, play the Dark Urge.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna try to tie it back.
Yeah, sorry. It's a good job you're here, Dora, because we need reining in.
We're gonna take one more side step, but this time not into Baldur's Gate. But I wanted to talk one little thing more about methodology. That without the situation was, and still is, in my opinion, such that because there is no real documentation on how this was made. Like I said, like at this point, ZAUM is also in a situation like everyone else who wants to make a disco-like, they have to reverse engineer it. So once all the people who actually understood how it works from the inside, how the sort of dialogue holds it all together, were gone, or like we were, I guess, the last people there. Then this kind of a situation manifested that I don't think I tried to explain this. I tried to explain it to Phil Davids, and I tried to explain it to Dennis. I tried to explain it to Ed, but I don't think I actually got through to them. But the point there was that in any other game that like any other CRPG where you have your combat mechanics, your crafting, and then your dialogue. If the dialogue doesn't work or the storyline doesn't work, you still have that other component to rely on. But if you're making a sequel or a disco spin-off and the dialogue doesn't work, then you don't have a game. You literally don't have a game. And you can get to a point where you have like 80%, 70% of the assets made, but it still isn't actually like nowhere near release ready because this kind of an element that makes it a game doesn't work. And also, like you think that okay, how difficult it is to write characters or dialogues, because ultimately, like everyone's played CRPGs, you go to one character, get a quest, walk to another character, get another quest. But to make this actually give you the same tension that you get from all these auxiliary systems from other games, or actually dialogue is the auxiliary system in other CRPGs. This is an insane undertaking, and it's very easy to kind of be blindsided and think like what's there to it. And this is very much what I think happened to Justin's project, because he also seemed to have thought that, well, how hard can it be? Or I think I understand it. So basically, I was trying to make a point that if we replace all of this methodology that we use to make this go, and we replace it with this generic Jira-based, this is how they do it in Ubisoft approach, then we're not going to end up with a game in the end. I don't think I got through to any of them with.
So where we are currently in the timeline is it's still between May and June 2023. So what happened is the PMG documentary had just aired. The studio feels like, okay, they are kind of PR-wise in a bit of a best place they've been in the last year and a half, because there's at least a reminder that there are still good people in there who still want you to give their games a shot. However, internally, there's chaos because they've had to cancel what was meant to be the largest project, P1, which was the one that Kaur had sold. It was Kaur's brainchild that he sold drawings to Ilmar to allegedly help them take money out of the company, etc., etc. And what I understand is that the vibe I got was that it was Ed who canceled it, and that Dennis wasn't too happy about it. And Dennis now has a situation where this large number of people will now be redistributed on the other projects. They will be mostly redistributed onto X7, onto our project, because that one should be closest to release. It should theoretically release in around like 14 months, and it doesn't even have a playable. So there were many people who are supposed to come in, and the P1 project, it had directors. It had much more of a vertical structure than our small X7 did. We, like we said, Argo and I, we were never given the title of director because they just simply didn't trust us with that. By that point especially, they already hated us, and already there was this seething resentment about Argo gaining so much popularity in the People Make Games documentary, about people coming inside the company and outside the company and saying, dude, Argo saved the company. He gave us a second chance, and man, Ilmar was shady. So now they have a situation where Dennis has his people who were directors on P1, his boys, and he doesn't want to demote those people, but he has to fold them into X7. And he doesn't want to promote me and Argo because he doesn't want to have another Robert situation. He doesn't want to have Argo as, spearheading a project and him being so popular inside the company and outside the company. So what management had decided is that they decided, okay, without telling us outright, they understood that they need to make me and Argo step down, and we need to agree to have these directors from the Cancel project who have just failed to deliver anything that resembled the professional, I mean, it's not the fault. The devs on that project worked so hard and they were really talented, but the management was floundering. The leadership was floundering. And, love to everyone. Again, a worst outcome for me out of all of this is if blame goes on to individuals rather than management, because again, the way the project was structured, who was put into what position of the responsibility and with what the expectations, that was due to failures of management, not to failures of these people. But regardless, important thing to point out is that the leadership of P1 had come to me and Argo, for example, it was February, so that was 4 months earlier. They had come to us to ask us for help. They said, you guys are running a very successful project and we have so many struggles in the writing team. Could you please give us like a short instructional day where you're going to give us, when you're going to teach us how you do things that you do? Maybe Argo can say a few words about that.
No, Dennis literally sent them because by that point it was obvious to everybody that something needs to change on P1 because no progress was made for ages. Because, like I said, in some shape or form, P1 started already back in Estonia in I think 2017, and sort of it was searching for its identity for a very, very long time. But because kind of by that point, when Dennis sent Jim and his team to us for a little bit of tutoring, they still had not started writing in Artisi. Like I think that's what it was, which was strange because a year before that, I think it was like a year before that, I gave the P1 writing team an Artisi tutoring. But anyways, yes, Dennis sent them to learn. I don't know how to put it. Like, yes, let's call it tutoring. And in advance of this in-face meeting in Brighton office, Jim sent us some questions so we could kind of prepare for it, or kind of be more targeted with our tutoring. And honestly, my jaw kind of dropped when I read these questions because essentially it came down to how do you make a video game, and it was scary to see that someone who's been leading the project for at that point, I think 3 years, 2 years probably, is asking the questions this basic, because kind of even though P1 was struggling in the background, every now and then still you see some update, you see one thing that was always truly on point was concept art. Like Anton, their concept art artist, put beautiful stuff out there. So you kind of assume based on these snippets that there's so much more that you're not seeing. But like seeing those questions, this realization dawned on me that I had previously called P1 short for Potemkin 1 as Potemkin's village, if you know the phrase. They dawned on me that this is a Potemkin village type of project, because for the longest time I thought that this is something me and Justin even discussed quite a bit, that Dennis was retaining this project in hopes of selling ZAUM after Robert and Rostov were out, and using this to kind of make it look more appealing to the potential investors. I don't know, was I correct? Maybe I wasn't, but it was so strange what came out of it for so long that it didn't seem like the driving force behind it truly wants to actually make a game. But anyways, we did the tutoring, and yeah, it was really nice. Like that was still this strange era between conflicts. Like PMG doc hasn't aired it yet, but Robert's Rostov shitstorm is already out there. So kind of in the middle of this, sitting down with writers from another team and actually talking writing, talking literature, it just felt really good. It was one of these good human moments. Very nice time.
Return to some sort of normality, yeah. But I say
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Normality.
That was around February 2023. And now, after the project's been cancelled, we're understanding that these people who are asking us, quite elementary questions, which, it's not a sin to be a beginner. It's really not. But when we are in a situation where we're starting to feel like they don't want to demote their current directors, they want these people to, take over our jobs and for us to step down, you become worried for yourself, for the team, for the project. It's clearly a strange setup. So the scene is this: they have predetermined, we really have a strong suspicion at that stage, they have predetermined that they want us to step down. They're not going to say it outright. So management, basically, first they invited us to the London office and they said, we're now going to initiate project restructuring so that the X7 can receive all the people from P1. And we're going to be having these, as they infamously became known throughout the project, the structure talks. These were supposed to be talks where we would sit down in meetings with management and we would agree to a new structure for the project. I think they anticipated this would take 1 or 2 meetings, but this would take 12 weeks. It would take around 3 months, during which the relationships would nosedive, the project would be ruined beyond repair, and literally such unbelievable unprofessionalism would take place that honestly, this was the worst 3 months of my life without any competition. On this first meeting in London, I remember Dennis drew some kind of graph on a whiteboard where he was explaining to us why it's so important that every project from now on is going to have one director and everything's going to go through these directors. And on paper, kind of like theoretically made sense, but I could tell that he's not just explaining this to us. They're kind of leading us into a conclusion where they wanted to start slowly working us so that we would over time they were hoping that we would over time say, oh, obviously, yeah, we should step down and you should put someone else up. In retrospect, hearing all the stuff that Robert and Rostov talked about, how they were talked into stepping down, allowing someone else to take over without really understanding what it meant or what they were giving up or how this would impact the work. I think very much that this is what happened. And during this first meeting, I also remember them management sort of explaining that this company is going to start becoming much more structured vertically, and in the future, as they work towards. So the idea was the suggestion was that P1 was just shelved, same way that Y12 was just shelved, and in the future, if they'll do these GTA size projects where there's going to be hundreds of people, then you're going to need like creative director and then a second tier of directors like narrative director, art director, then there's going to be leads, then there's going to be seniors, etc. And they said that they plan on ZAUM becoming this multiple game studio where there's always multiple games in development of multiple scopes. And I remember asking them, but why does this company insist on doing things that it's not good at, things that it's never done before? Like, you made this Coliseum, which is a game with certain scope and size. Why now try to make multiple games of very different genres, very much larger scopes with team structures that they've never attempted before, instead of sticking to what they know? And I remember kind of Ed said, wait, I got this one. It's because we always want to keep challenging ourselves. We'll always try to do something that is just a little beyond of what we already know. And I remember I said, but I thought I was under the impression when I joined this company that this is a indie studio that has achieved one independent game, and I wasn't under the impression that I joined something that wants to be a AAA Western studio. And Dennis was like, well, you were wrong. You were under the wrong impression.
Wow.
Like, when you've never played a CRPG, then it's good to start your first playthrough in Iron Man mode, basically. But also to kind of understand the landscape a little bit here is that, yes, the company has grown from 30 people to 100 people, and many of these new bad at math. 70 people who have joined. Many of them have industry experience. Some have a lot of industry experience. Almost none of them are placed in leadership positions. So this studio that once made a game, Disco Elysium, and then has been struggling ever since. Like if you start from coming from top down and look like where are these who are running things in the very top, in the very top you have the cardboard Ilmar. Behind him is Dennis Haavel, who's actually running things. Then in parallel somewhere there's Ed, like one person who actually knows how the industry works. And now top down you have people who lead projects who have never led anything, and also never made video games or led like a video game production. Because like I said, Justin Keenan was an editor. He was leading C4. Jim was the voiceover director on Final Cut. This is when he joined, before he became a P1 director. And even kind of still very much, at least the studio identity is that this is a writer-led studio. So you would think that at least probably in the writing circles, people have game making experience. And in P1 there was one girl who had worked in Ubisoft. To be fair, but C4 nobody had worked on a game past our departure. Jim had a theater background. So basically, like you have to. Most of these 70 people with gaming experience, they were either on junior positions or definitely in positions where they're not making decisions. And kind of this is very much part of the reason why ZAUM hasn't put out anything ever since. That yes, there is this knowledge and know-how how to actually make games, but it is so deep and kind of blocked by this. What do you call it? Favorites of the leadership who are actually kind of making decisions or passing on Tõnis's decisions, that their voices are not heard. Like they cannot actually successfully use their expertise. Like, this is the landscape.
I do want to be fair to some of the writers that it's not true that no one had worked on a game, but I think it's true that no one had worked on a game start to finish, because I know some people had been commissioned to do some writing on certain games, but that is also quite different than knowing how to initiate how a project is initiated through all its stages, how it's completed, and how all the facets of it come together. Like obviously, there's quite, it's a difference to seeing something made from start to finish and, for example, coming to edit it or maybe supplying some writing for it, which is not to say that you can't be an excellent writer for games and not have previous games experience, but certainly the problems there were in who was given power to run the show, because certainly I have seen this case in multiple departments, that people who had more experience, even if it wasn't, even if it was just entry-level experience into games, they were sidelined in favor of whoever management liked better. And that often was honestly men. So well into late 2023, there would be no women in lead or director positions in terms of creative. So no, not in writing, not in art, not in audio, nowhere in any project, for example. Yeah.
What about ethnic minorities?
So this was this is interesting, because I want to touch on that when we get to the redundancy pool, because the people who were laid off were much more diverse group than ZAUM itself. So people of color and LGBTQ people were more represented in the lower echelons of the company, and in the redundancy pool they were overrepresented. So there's definitely a certain type that management wants to play ball with, and they seem to be straight kind of Western men.
Yeah, there's a reason why we use the term broken boys.
Yeah, I should have said minorities in general, or minority groups, not specific to ethnics. Yeah, I meant to include all groups, because I just suspected that if there was a theme with the masculine nature of the promotions, then there was probably other themes as well. So yeah.
Yeah, there was some showmanship in terms of ZAUM had while I was there, they had a diversity committee that was supposed to improve the situations. And I tried to join that in 2022. It was after the whole fallout on the C4 project. And I'd previously worked in EDI when I was at the university, so I had experience for several years of this kind of work. But they asked me to leave. They kind of kicked me off before I didn't do anything. Yeah, it was, I think the first day or second day when I signed up, I said, look, I want to join this. I might not have time to attend every meeting. And then I was said that, yeah, you know, like kind of management would be more comfortable if you left.
Wow.
So there was definitely this was another pool where I think surveillance was happening. Like, it's so much nicer for them to say, hey, we're going to allow you this little committee or something, and then we'll put a few of our guys in there. And that's a really nice way, I think, to be in the loop about what's happening.
Yeah,